Startup Therapy with Sandeep, Shroff, and Gaurav Rastogi.
Hello, everybody. Start up to the next episode of Startup Therapy. In this episode, we are talking of scaling up. Scaling up meaning building the jet while you're flying it. And we have the distinct pleasure of having the founder and CEO of Innovaccer here with us, Sandy. This episode is about how a company goes up slowly, like a ratcheting of a roller coaster, click by click up. You don't know where you're going, and then suddenly the ground falls off from under you, and you're on this massive drop, not knowing whether you will come up or this is the end of the story. And then you come back up, hopefully. And that's what Sandy has done and his team has done at Innovaccer. They had this wild roller coaster ride, went up from 0 to 10 million. And then came the drop from 10 million back to 1 million. And here they are now back to about 180 million ARR. So we're going to talk of that journey. I'm Sandeep Shroff. I'm the founder CEO of My Startup CFO. We do exactly what our name says. We are CFOs, bookkeepers, accountants for small companies, and we take you on this roller coaster ride. After we remain with you on the roller coaster ride, whether up or down. So here we are, Sandeep. It's up to you. Talk about a little bit about yourself. And I forgot to mention, we have Gaurav here with me, my friend.
Hello, Sandeep and Sandy. Once again, I'm Gaurav. I'm one of the co-host for Startup Therapy. And I met first Sandy at an alumni event, and he was kind enough to invite me over to lunch, and we had a very fine San Francisco lunch. And he told me his story, and his story was so fascinating that I really said we should have him on the episode. So thanks for coming, Sandy.
No, this is great and great to be here. And I would love to share my learnings. It has been a journey, I would say, full of fun and challenges. So yeah, depending on how, Sandeep, you structure the questions, it can go one versus the other kind of a way. But excited to be here, and we'll have a lot of fun today.
All right, guys. So the first question, Sandy, for you. You guys started off as a Wharton-Harvard data project. This was an academic thing. It was a project. You went from there to now, as I said, 180 million revenue. It took you about a decade or so. In the bargain, you're disrupting a very notoriously difficult industry to crack, which is the healthcare, IT, or health stack business. So talk about a little bit about your inception and what really inspired you to take this challenge on and frankly, keep the challenge for a decade and keep going.
No, it's great. And again, I have a habit of going very long into the inception story. So please do cut me off with questions. I don't feel bad about it at any point in time. But so this was what, 20. So after my IMA, that was my graduation that Gaurav was talking about, the common alma mater for both of us. I started and joined this, I joined this organization called Ingersoll Rand, which was into heavy engineering. And I was there on the sales and marketing side. My other co-founders were in the same organization. And as they say that, like when you are in a large organization, there are two things that you do. One is that you obviously crib about the company in which you are. And the second thing you do is that you figure out what to do together, kind of stuff. So birds of the same feather flock together. We got this amazing kind of an opportunity, which was this was a joint collaboration between Harvard and Wharton back in the day. And the project was just much more about that. These researchers were looking to get access to very high quality data. So data which is like, again, unstructured in text, in like PDFs, images, and what have you. The target was that, okay, you know what, you bring this data out, make it into structured, standardized format, and then you give it back to that researcher. And this was Harvard and Wharton, and actually one of the professors was ex-IMA. That's how we got access to that project in the first place. So once we got that project, we took that on. We did deliver on this work. And again, this work otherwise would have taken the professor something like 20 months, 25 months, and tens of thousands of dollars. We were able to do it under $10,000. And again, as a young kind of like 24 something in Delhi, $10,000 was enough. We were like happy and we did that work. We used our latest machine learning and like abstraction kind of mechanisms to make that data structured and give it back to them. Once that research got published, we got a lot of kind of traction in terms of like the folk, like other researchers were asking our first kind of customers, which was a Harvard and Wharton professor, in terms of that, how did you do it and all that kind of stuff. And that's where we got a lot of traction. So over the course of next 2 years, we ended up like working on some 70 of the top with rather 70 of the top 100 research organizations across US and Europe. And the work was exactly what I told, right? Like bringing data into from unstructured to structured. Now, research is a great place to start a company, but it's extremely challenging to scale it up because you are living from one paycheck to the other. Every customer is paying you one time kind of revenue. I think one of my big learning at that point in time was that I was driving at that time sales and delivery function of it. And I remember like joking with my team that like I have to carry my bag every day to sell. That is a seller, right? Like you want to have customers that you once sold and you do such an amazing work that they become a recurring kind of a nature. So one learning made that never ever sell, at least for me, never sell one time kind of things because otherwise scaling becomes very challenging. So with that, we made our first pivot. And our first pivot was that we have built up a great solution. We have built up a great product, which is able to bring all these disparate data sources and do something downstream. But research is probably not the best place. And we pivoted from research into enterprise. Now, when we were going to enterprise, again, as any typical MBA grad, we did our SAM-TAM analysis and we figured out that, you know what, which are the largest markets. So we said finance is big, retail is big, obviously healthcare is big. And we said that, okay, we'll now go and start selling the same kind of thing. So with this vision in mind, I was the first to be shipped from India to US. This was 2015. We started our scale up in the enterprise side of the equation. We quickly got very good traction on the enterprise side because of our connections with the researchers. Because these researchers, like think about any of these Harvard kind of professors, they're connected pretty much everyone in the industry. They liked us. So they made a referral that, okay, you know what, this EVP, let's say at Disney wants to like, can you meet this guy? I like him and all that kind of stuff. So in a matter of a year itself, we ended up getting some amazing contracts with organizations like Disney, Waters Clouvers, NASA, Harley Davidson, again on the same thesis. And that's when Sandeep, we scaled up to this $10 million of ARR revenue very quickly. So again, top of the world, extremely happy kind of setup that, okay, we have scaled so fast. Actually, we had just raised our Series A as well in this period once we started scaling up to this level. However, as we were scaling up in this journey, and like, again, it was like pretty much what any like one could think about, what we realized was that for us to scale up at that point in time was becoming a little bit of a challenge because each of these industries that we were working were very diverse and they were trying to solve very different problems. And as a industry agnostic data platform, there is only so much business problems or in-depth that we could go with them, right? So the decision on us was that you can continue the same way, but we would very soon we would end up becoming a service company because we will have to do these service projects or we'll have to work with consulting orgs or what have you. But that was a learning that we had got in Pivot 1, that we did not want one-time revenue. But we also saw that if you have to scale up, you have to choose one area and then you have to scale up pretty strongly over there. So at that time, I remember we had got this first healthcare customer, middle of nowhere in Iowa. And this was erstwhile CHI Iowa, which is Catholic Health Initiatives. Now this is Common Spirit Health. And they had given us this first project, which was about, they were trying to build up a clinically integrated network. And they asked us to aggregate some 30 different data sources to bring it into a unified data model kind of a format. So I think it was much more about like a gut feel that we did. And we decided that, guys, we have to shut down everything else and just focus on healthcare. So that was our next pivot that we did. This was the year 2016. And our first board meeting was still not held after the funding. And we walked into a first board meeting and declared, I would say, with all the masochism attached to it, that, you know what, we are going to shut down 90% of our business and we want to focus in one. We went into our first board meeting and the board was like, again, surprised by the kind of decisions we were making, but they thought that we were also fairly naive and stupid to make that decision, but they backed us all the way. And we dropped down to $1 million in revenue. That was our, next pivot that we did, that from industry agnostic, just get back into healthcare. And then within healthcare as well, then when we started scaling up, it's been like a fairly, I would say, informative kind of a journey. I think, Sandeep, you made that kind of comment, and we can talk a little bit more about like healthcare in specific as we get into the depth and detail of it. But over in healthcare as well, like it feels like one industry, but there are several sub segments within it. It's the payers, it's the providers, the pharma, it's the device manufacturers, it's the PBMs, and everything keeps, and like then there's a patient, obviously, and each one of them is like massive TAM in itself. So we had to make several pivots within that space as well as we went about. So I think if I zoom out and think about the Innovaccer journey, it's all about that. How do you, as a founding member or a founder, or whatever that profile that you have, are extremely, like, if I can use the word, brutally honest with yourself at all point in time, that what you are building, are you happy with it, and will it scale up or not? Like a lot of my colleagues and friends, they went into the business of starting up. I think a lot of times you get a little bit afraid to call your own baby ugly. And I think that's the biggest challenge that a startup founder can have. Like, you have to realize that at a given time that, okay, you know what, this is not going to scale up. I get it. You'll not tell that story to your investors. You'll not tell to your employees. You'll not tell it to you and your wife, right? But at least you should know in your heart. And basis what you know in your heart, you should be making a decision that, okay, you know what, the time has come to move on. And you need to then figure out a strategy that how will you scale up if you made that decision. In our case, it was all about naivety and stupidity, as I said. Between the co-founders, and I'm very fortunate to have great co-founders, Abhinav, Kanav, like as we were scaling up that journey and everything else, we did not have a measure of success, if I can use. And like, that's the reason why we could take those decisions. For us, whatever we had achieved at a given point in time was already far beyond that what we had started up together, because we were like, again, having fun together, working in this organization. We liked working with each other. So we said, okay, we'll start. Every stage was more than what we had anticipated. And that's why, like, losing it never worried, and that's why we were able to make that pivots and have that transparent discussion. But Sandeep, I probably went way long than what you had anticipated from your question. So yeah.
Just to clarify, you're saying that you were successful at every pivot by your own definition, and that energy kept you going.
Exactly. And like, if it wasn't seeming to be success, like if it wasn't the truth, we change the definition of success itself, is how I would think about it. Like, for us, it was just very important. Like, we were having fun, like working together. We would be spending 18 hours a day. Like, again, spending 18 hours a day, 6-7 days a week when you're starting up is not easy job. And if you do not enjoy the company of your fellows, you can never ever do it. But for us, it was always about it. If not this, what else will we do? Like, we can obviously go back into the corporate side, and then we'll have to create more relationships, this, that, and what have you. We like doing this. And like, again, there is now, like, if there was a stagnation in what we were doing, we would be like, you know what, but this other idea is so much more bolder, and like, this is so challenging, and like, maza aayega kind of thing. And we would like, let's do it. So it was stupidity, naivety, and still is there.
But so, Sandy, coming back to what you were just saying, your relationship between the three of you is important. And how did that relationship evolve through this? So you've been through a series of ups and downs, and clearly your motive for working together is the fact that you're working together. How did the relationship change?
I think, see, like, I mean, it's gone through a lot of ups and downs, as you were saying, Gaurav, and we can go into the more of depths around it. More importantly, I think as a founding team member, the most important thing is mutual respect. And mutual respect for what the other person brings to the table is extremely important. I think we were fortunate that right in the beginning, we kind of created like, back in the day, we signed it, but I don't know where that paper is. But what we agreed on in 2014, all three of us, actually, there were 4 at that time. What we agreed was that we would never bring any family member into direct business, because we realized this is not a single founder company. This is a multi-founder company. And what we were very worried about was that if we bring, let's say, one of our spouses in, and now the other spouses come in, and then there is a brother-in-law and sister, like all the families accumulate that come in, that's where your ethical stance as an organization goes away, and you end up becoming what is called as a lala company, or whatever different words that you find around it, which is like, you don't put your ethics at the forefront of every decision that you make. It has to be an underlying factor. It has to be something that how you live today. For example, between us as founders, like, my reimbursement reports are like made public, and same as Abhinav's, and same as others. Like, so core basis, there should be no kind of conflicts. There should be absolutely nothing to like hide. So that is a hygiene. I think that went a long way, that we had huge fights, and we still do have huge fights. Like in terms of that, the external party might be that these guys are going to like go to brickering or like what the heck is going on here. But we always know that the other person is thinking about the well-being of the organization and they feel passionate about it. There is nothing hidden agenda over here. I think that confidence that we have on each other, that like, you know what, the other person is also thinking about the well-being of the organization, builds that mutual trust. And then you develop that respect for the other individual. And then obviously the friendship kicks in, and like you need to have, even from work, like having those times when you are just like bantering each other or like stuff like that. And I think that has been the cornerstone as to how the highs and lows have been taken care of. Because in a typical kind of a startup journey, it's not going to be smooth riding. There are going to be the troughs. The point is that when the trough hits, somebody in the group needs to be passionate and stupid enough to say that, you know what, we love it and like we'll still do this and that lifts up the overall morale of the group. And then you just make a run for it. I think that has been like super, super critical for us.
As this journey is changing, you have respect for each other. That's very important. Agreed. Transparency amongst co-founders is the best thing. But there are times when you realize either what I'm doing is wrong or not good enough for the good of the company. Like I have hit my max, what should I call, capacity on this role. So how do you, number one, what's the symptom that tells you that you hit this max? And how do you kind of pivot out of it? And make bad use for the word pivot here because we're talking pivot. But there's a personal pivot here, right? That you have to basically fire yourself from this job and walk away. Okay, he does it better than me.
Makes sense. I think, see, like, and I'll talk from a founding team member or a founding team kind of perspective, right? I think the brutal honesty is the one that you always need to hold to yourself. And the brutal honesty is not just about the business that you're trying to run, but also about your own capability set and where the gap exists. And once you have, like, if you're honest about that, okay, you know what, I am great in like maybe EQ, but I'm not that great in, let's say, the mathematical modeling or what have you, or it vice versa, right? Or it could be that, you know what, I love talking to my internal employees, but I'm not so good external facing, so I cannot do sales. So, recognizing what your shortcomings are, and then like really figuring out, and that's your own personal reflection moments, Sandeep, almost I kind of think that, do I really want to get good at it? Because if you really put your head and want to get good at something, like there are umpteen number of books around the 10,000 hours, there's that and what have you. So like you can study them, but like my point is you can get good at it for sure. So the personal decision you want to make is that, do I really want to be exceptional in coding, or do I really want to be exceptional, let's say, in my customer interactions or my prospects or my marketing skills or whatever that is there? And once you have made the decision for yourself, then you go down the path of becoming the best version of yourself in that area, or you find somebody else who can do that thing for you. Like, it's very simple. My point is that you cannot bluff to. As a leader, even in today's scale and size, if I think about Innovaccer, like again, fairly scaled Series F2 and all that kind of stuff done, like, I don't think so I or anyone else on the leadership team, they cannot bluff through their way. Probably you may, I think if you are like at a very, very large organization, multi-hundred billions, like you can just be hidden somewhere. But at a senior leadership level, you cannot bluff through, and you have to identify that if you want to get better, then you chart your path, that how will I get better at it? And if you feel that, okay, you know what, my kind of limit has been hit, then probably it's time to again take another role or reduce that kind of responsibility from your description and let somebody else do it. If you let ego play over there on your own side, that nope, this is what I have done, and like that's where the downfall of the organization also kind of starts, especially if you are at a founder level. So you need to have that level of maturity to manage it.
And my personal opinion on that is that if you think not of obviously you're calling yourself ugly in some aspect and you have to live with that reality, but I think you have to look more at it from a perspective of, if I keep bluffing myself, I will not only screw myself, but I hurt many other jobs in the company, many other careers in the company. And, I think that responsibility for others, you have to keep in mind front and center to keep yourself honest and best value add to the company.
Couldn't have said it better, Sandeep. Couldn't have said it. Like, because the tonality of the organization gets set right at the top. And in a startup-ish kind of a scenario, if at the top you are not being like honest about it, then how can you expect somebody else to do the same kind of a setup, right? So I couldn't agree more.
So Sandy, I wanted to ask you, you guys are not now co-located, right? The founders, the three of you?
We are co-located in terms of like three of us are here in the East Bay area, Silicon Valley. But yeah, Gaurav, it's important to hold that core group together. Is been my firm belief always.
Nice. So my question is, do you have a room with down feathered pillows so you can have a full fight when you need to?
We have a room full of books and the books are flying around at times. And the books are like both figuratively as well as like just like reading out from like, hey, this is what this person said. See, so that's the reason why. But yeah, there are lots of fights for sure, Gaurav.
So and by now you must have a good working rhythm of having fights, because obviously that's how you pivoted successfully. So are there rules that you have of what you can or cannot say, or and so on, that you've arrived at somehow?
Yeah. I think, see, the one, it's okay to disagree. And fights and like are important. We even talk about it in our town halls that, guys, if you are passionate about it, don't hide your passion. Don't say something because, let's say, a higher or like +2 level, +5 level person is in the room, so I cannot say it. If you are passionate about something, again, there's a way to put your point, but be passionate about it and fight it through. And we give examples of how, again, even within the founders, you have seen us a lot of times fighting about an issue, but the issue is always over a point. It's not about something more. So that is one. And the second thing is that we will have like huge fights at times. We'll not get an answer that day. We'll say that, okay, let's punt it up into next day. Let's sleep over it. We'll come back. We'll again have a discussion. But once a solution is realized and all of us kind of in the room say that, okay, it is now what it is. This is agreement. Then after that, all prior opinions, they don't even matter. Then it is what it has been decided and we're just going to run for it. But prior to the decision being made, there are huge fights and there should be huge fights. If there are not, then you will probably not get the best outcome.
You're probably in a group think mode, and one guy says, the other guys are giving in and they say, okay, this guy's right. So I think going with an opinion that you have not hashed out, you can't, you go with that opinion half-heartedly. And I think half-heartedly is not the way to go in any startup at any stage, early stage, late stage, scale-up stage.
So Sandy, you've made some very dramatic pivots. And clearly not easy to arrive at, going from 10 million to 1.5 million. Fighting in the room is one thing. Do you ever second guess yourself and say, look, what the heck were we thinking at the time?
Yeah. Like, again, our investors told us that, dude, rather than going back to your customers and saying that we'll be shutting down this business, we should have just sold it off and made some money. And you're like, that was a good idea. So it's like every decision that you take is not right, by the way, but like you live with it pretty much, right? And like, again, we didn't just focused on that, okay, you know what, we could have sold off that, let's say, $9 million of business for whatever, 2x, 3x. And it was a very significant amount of money that we could have made. Now, the con side of that can be that to try to sell that business, they would have said that, no, you have to come in as founders to try and retain it. And like, there will be, maybe we would have made some money right then the beginning because they would have wanted us to stay on for 3 years, but this company would then never have been created in the first place. So there are always pros and cons, and like at times you just reminiscence about it and think about it that, what could have happened, but like who cares? Like, so only those discussions only happen when you are 3 drinks down or something, but otherwise you just do with your day-to-day knife fights. There are enough of them.
Now there are what ifs are no good. Because you don't know what would have happened in that sequence of time. And you can keep second guessing yourself and keep wasting your time and energy and not focus again, going back to the thing. So I was going to go back to the question. Obviously, you have investors, these are institutions, and you made these quote unquote, double quotes, air quotes, foolish decisions, stupid decisions. What's been the investor equation been? I mean, the kind of fights you've had in your closed room with the co-founders or even senior management, has there been disagreement with investors, or they've said, yeah, you guys know better, go with it?
No, makes sense. That we have had a ton of investors. Again, we have raised more than $650 million till date. So we have had a ton of investors, but I would say we have been very lucky to have a set of investors that align with us in the long-term value that can be created. And we have also been fairly, I would say, like investors that were looking for a short-term return and what have you, we have like cycled them through the like through the last 10 years that, okay, you are there on the cap table, but we'll buy you out, or with the new capital coming in, we'll just take you out, kind of a setup. So we have been fairly, I would say, meticulous in like curating our cap table with investors that align with the long-term vision. And like one of the things that I always like think about is that when somebody is starting up, everyone wants such quick returns. And with the advent of generative AI and everything, like it's even getting faster and faster, because everyone thinks that, okay, you know what, company launched today and 3 months you are 10 million and 12 months you are 100 million, and those stories get celebrated. But those are very, very rare. Those are very, very rare. And like typical startups never operate that way. More often than not, the startups would be at, it's like a toll. You have to put in effort. You obviously need to have a lot of fun while you are doing it, and you should keep on it. You need to take a long-term view of the company that you're trying to build. So rather than just taking a 5-year view, which a typical venture capital would take, because like the fund cycle is 5 to 7 years, and they have to show their returns back to their LPs and what have you. If you take a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year kind of a view that what you're trying to build, the power of compounding is amazing. So I think what, Sandeep, to your question, we have done is that with our investors, we have tried to incorporate that we are thinking about the company from a long run perspective. Again, age is on benefit that we can go for long, like there are another 10-year, 20-year for us personally speaking about the business. And with where we are today, we can easily build it up into, let's say, a $1 billion in revenue company, a $2 billion revenue company. And that point in time, it is all recurring in nature. You can do the math by doing the multiplications, all the multipliers, and you can get to your valuation and stuff. But focus on the core and have a long-term view of it. Compounding will always be a friend to you. And if you keep on increasing year over year, you will get to the right outcome. So like we have been lucky to, again, be stupid enough or foolish enough to paint that picture for our investors, and they believed in it. They were like that, okay, you know what, from $10 million when we were making that decision, they understood that, okay, you know what, probably this company will tank at 25, 30 million, maybe 40 million. And yeah, we can sell it off for 500 million. So they'll still get a 10x return from where they invested. But the vision was that, okay, can you, like, rather than this 10x vision, make a 100x like return or a 200x return? And like, hopefully it has been very valuable for them too, is what we have, like, at least they keep telling us. So, but we are still, like, our long journey still ahead of us. Because even at 180, 200, the path to $1 billion is clear, and then keep on scaling up beyond it.
Do you have any Series A investors still on the cap, or they're cycled up?
Oh, we even have angels on our cap table. There are angels that came in at a $7 million round. They are still in. They're still saying that, okay, this can go bigger. So you would be
Nice.
surprised to hear that 80% of our angels are still in.
No, it's a very goozy, bumpy feeling that all these investors trust in you and believe in you, and to have them along the ride. I think good investors become your true friends along the way. I understand IRR, I understand 10x, 100x, but a good investor should become a friend, slash companion, if you will, for the journey. That's very important.
For sure.
Because it not only you're not only discussing income statement, balance sheet with them, but not only business decisions, but I'm sure there are times when you discuss your personal struggles with them, and what am I going through mentally as an individual?
Yep.
So that's very. And then they've been, what I've seen is good investors, become partly psychotherapists for you. A good board member will be a good psychotherapist for you, because you can open up to them. That's important.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like they have got much better, and like not better, but broader experience said, because they are looking at like hundreds likes in a similar kind of situation. So couldn't have said it better, Sandeep.
We talked about the painful lessons so far. What might be some painful lessons that would have stopped you from getting into this in the first place?
You see, like again, so as I told, right, that there were 4 co-founders to start with, and like you have to also, like, this co-founder, the fourth one, that we had to kind of let go or fire, or whatever you want to call it, or he left us, like he say, she say. So let's not get over there. But let's say the fourth co-founder that left us, I think the tough thing for us to figure out was that there wasn't, like, figuring out the chemistry and the trust between the founders is so tough. like, because we were not able to find that chemistry going with the fourth one. So we had to take a hard call and call it quits for the individual. So I think those things are something kind of a painful kind of moments. And that's also the piece that, okay, the team could have just broken apart and said that, okay, you know what, 2 and 2 are going and now we are not doing it. So having a stable, long-term founding team that trust and respect each other and are in it for the long term are extremely, extremely important. And if you have a doubt on it, there is never an easier moment. That's also one realization that I've had. Like, you would think that, you know what, we are just starting up, so let's get a little bit more traction and then maybe it will get better. And maybe it is a series A, so series B will make it easier. But there is never a point in life where it becomes easier. So if you have to make that rip the band-aid, do it sooner. And maybe that kills the setup altogether and you have to do something new, but all for the better. It's better to do it like you would have wasted, let's say, just 6 months, 12 months, and do it 18 months rather than having spent 10 years and then having to do it. And then you realize that, okay, my last 5 years were all horrible kind of setup, right?
The one thing I've realized is we all try to make a very educated judgment about or a call on what my co-founder should be or who the co-founder should be or some characteristics. You can do an academic match or a chemistry match or whatever. I think the one thing you cannot figure out is how will this person react under severe stress. Their severe stress moments are going to come. And how are they going to react? And how are you going to react in that moment? And in that moment, will you be friends or will you be enemies or will you be at each other's throat or whatever? I think it is just near impossible to predict that behavior. And hence there is not some, but a large part of luck that you have in the co-founder meeting or co-founder matching process, I think.
Sandeep, I'd like to offer one baby idea to you for your validation, which is because I'm in India right now as we speak. I think I'll register founderkundli.com to match horoscopes for founder.
Take the domain.
You would be surprised to, like, there are so many psychotherapists now in the US, and obviously you would see that, like, now there was this interesting, so we were looking at a new investor coming in, and that's in Series E. And they said first thing that, okay, you know what, we want to do a psychographic analysis of the founders to figure out that how do they match. And like, that is so commonality. And I was surprised that, like, why at Series E and stuff, they like that, you know what, when we correlated the success of a company, everything else like wasn't such a great match. One thing was sure was that if the founder psychographic analysis fit in each other, then that's the best predictor that, okay, we found that, okay, this will be successful. And like, okay, works for you, great.
I'm feeling a tingling sense that this is a great idea to get the Indian horoscope service matched with this founder dating thing.
It will be a good idea for sure, Gaurav.
There you go. So Gaurav, big time.
Rapid fire.
Rapid
Big
fire.
time.
We have rapid fire questions. So Gaurav, you start.
So Sandy, what's harder, getting your first 10 customers or scaling to your first 10,000?
First 10.
What's the one skill every founder needs to survive rapid growth?
Brutal honesty.
Okay, Sandy, what's the worst piece of advice that you've ever received?
So that was in the Bay Area. This is in 2014. I was like, this is right in the beginning, and I come and talk to this big ass kind of startup investor and like ex-founder and everything. So I was like that, okay, we are trying to figure out this is what we are doing. What do you recommend? And he thought for like 2 minutes, and then in a very like 45-degree angle where you're looking at the future, he replied back to me saying that, you know what, make a product that you sell in a market that can pay you a lot of money. I was like, obviously, this is like for this travel across 7 oceans to come to you and talk to you about it. Like this is common. Like, it's not the worst advice, but I would say the most easiest advice. But like, it's true for sure.
Worst value-add advice. Everybody knows that, right? If you could change one thing about the way you built Innovaccer, what would that be?
Have more people that you can trust around you. As you are scaling up, you will find that there are tens or thousands of people that you can let join. But the people that you really trust in, like, okay, I can just keep my eyes shut and let that person run with it, that are the people that are our initial people. So one thing that I would do is that we still have a lot of people from the early days, like 10 years kind of setup. We just did a 10-year kind of for those people, and we were surprised to find that approximately 8%. So out of 1,000 people, 80 people were still our early ones. So have more and more of your early employees stay with you. I think that's very critical, because those are the people that you will blindly trust at all point in time, and they can just run with it.
More painful, losing a major client or losing a key team member? You've done both.
Yeah. Very hard one. I think it's always a client, because see, there have been so many rebound cases within our company that even if you lose somebody, you can get them back. And we were just doing the rebound candidates. Like there were like 40 people who left us, and we liked them, and they went out 1-2 years. They did not like it, and they came back, and we were happy to obviously bring them back. But customers once gone, it becomes very hard to bring them back, and the negativity then it spreads and the morale goes down. So definitely a customer.
What leadership trait you have had to develop that as your company grew, the trait that you did not have, that you had to develop as the company was scaling?
So yeah, this is an interesting one. So I am by nature a very introverted type of a person. Even if you ask my batchmates, Gaurav, right from the IMA, I would hardly speak, I would hardly participate, like more of a bookworm and the corner kind of a guy, likes to do his own things kind of setup. But over the last 10 years, I've been doing sales and marketing, which cannot be more extrovert as a job in general. So I realized that, okay, this is a thing that I really want to do and like focus on. So pretty much a new skill set, that how do you show up? How do you prepare? How do you appear confident and all that kind of skills? So I did not have that skill set, but I had to develop it.
So what's more crucial during growing a business, speed or precision?
Speed.
One metric every founder should obsess over while scaling.
It's NRR, customer retention, NRR, net revenue retention.
What's the one thing that keeps you up at night as a founder?
Oh, we are now in the process of making another pivot. So like with all this advent of AI and everything else, if like any of the companies that are in the SaaS space, they don't pivot very quickly, they're dead. Like again, in 5 years time frame, agentics and everything will take over the entire software. Hardware got kind of sidelined by software. Software itself got disrupted by SaaS, and then SaaS on the cloud rather than on-prem. SaaS on the cloud will get disrupted for sure by your AI agentic workflows and everything else. And that's the one piece that if we don't like really nail it down, then we are dead in 5 years time frame.
But you are not doing the 10-to-1 thing again.
No, not this time.
Last question. If you could give one survival tip to founders, what would that be?
Enjoy your friendship with other founders. If you enjoy the company, you will survive through anything.
Nicely said. Nicely said. That's great. Thank you very much, Sandy, for showing up today and giving us this valuable insight into a early stage to scale up founder mindset. Appreciate your time, and thank you very much, Gaurav.
Sandy, thanks for taking us around your roller coaster.
No, this was great. Gaurav, Sandeep, I said this would be fun. This was definitely fun interacting, and hopefully this could be some value add for your recipients and audience. So yeah, happy to do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sandeep, I'm buying the domain. Send you the bill.
Founder.